Echo Link VA3GDZ connected.
Welcome to the VE3MIS 2-meter repeater. The time is 7:57 p.m.
VA3GDZ disconnected. Echo Link VA3GDZ connected.
Good evening, this is Victor Echo 3 X-Ray Bravo Hotel. My name is Brian and I'm your controller this evening for the Mississauga Amateur Radio Emergency Service Net. The purpose of this net is to pass Aries-related traffic and items of interest onto the Aries group. When checking in, please announce your call sign using phonetics, followed by your first name. Before we commence any general check-ins, are there any emergency or priority traffic only? Come now, please. Nothing heard. Are there any general check-ins for the Mississauga Aries net? Please come now with your call sign and name.
Victor Echo 3, Delta Romeo Zulu John.
Victor Alpha 3, Golf Delta Zulu, Gary.
Victor Alpha 3, Hotel Echo Sierra, Mark.
Okay, net acknowledges 3 stations in there, VA3HES, VA3GDZ, and John, VE3DRZ. You're at the top of the list, John. Come on in.
Good evening, Brian, low on frequency. Nothing spectacular to report here. It's another day of looking at the numbers and being very, very happy that I'm not living in India. So back to net control, this is VE3DRZ.
VE3DRZ, VE3XBH. Okay, John, well, good to hear that all is well, and yes, I agree, happy to not be living in India at this point in time, but looks like the numbers have been a little bit more favorable. Let's hope we can continue it, so all good. John, thanks for checking in. Okay, with that, let's go to VA3GDZ. Gary, come on in.
Yeah, hi there, Brian. I'm coming in on Echolink this time. I'd appreciate you telling me if the audio level is good enough, because I'm on deck in about 27 minutes for the Mississauga Club net tonight. Going to ask people about what wacky weather they've experienced and whether they think that's a sign of climate change. So that should be interesting. I see that Mark has the YouTube up as well. Thank you for that, Mark. And I'll mention that in the introductory statements that people can listen in on YouTube as well and check their signal level. Anyways, am I coming in too hot, too quiet, or just about right there, Brian? Go ahead.
Well, Gary, you sound pretty good. I would say the audio might be a little bit hot, not terrible, but it sounds like it kind of clips a little bit on the louder passages. So if you can bring it down just a hair, would probably be fine. But everything else sounds good. Sounds like you got a good topic for tonight, and thanks for checking in, and good to hear that all is well. Anything else?
Well, there's lots of stuff out there, but I got to save a little bit for later on. Yeah, okay, I'll try putting the mic a little farther away from my mouth and crank it down just a shade. I do appreciate the feedback. I remember last time when I came in on RF into the Mississauga repeater, I listened to it later on Mark's live stream, and it was quiet. So I think, I don't know why, Echolink seems to do a good job both coming out on RF and obviously over the internet. It seems to be stronger, and also you can talk to the international people who join in sometimes. So I think I'll stick with the Echolink. But nobody else told me my RF, my mic gain was low, but when I listened to it on YouTube, it turned out to be a bit on the quiet side. We'll see if Mark, who's next on your list, has any comments. Back to you there, Brian. This is Victor Alpha 3, Golf, Delta Zulu.
VA3 GDZ, VE3XVH. Okay, Gary. Well, thanks for checking in, and we'll be talking, I'm sure, at 8:30 for the Mississauga net. Okay, let's go to VA3 HES. Mark, come on in, Mark.
Good evening, Brian, and everyone on frequency. Gary, you're sounding good. My comments would echo the same as Brian's, maybe just down a decibel the most on your microphone gain there, going into Echolink. Otherwise, very good tone to these deaf old ears anyways. Hi. And thank you for remembering about the YouTube stream and to plug it at the top of the net so people remember. And otherwise, nothing else to report. Waiting for the rain to start again. I was about to let my son run around the backyard, and it started to rain over here. So he's in dire need of running around and burning off some steam. Otherwise, you might hear him in the background tonight during the net. Back to you, Brian.
Hey, Mark. All good. Good to hear you got the stream running tonight. I haven't fired it up yet, but I'll be firing it up shortly, and we'll keep an eye on it there also, and I'll get Echolink up and running for the net, so all good. Mark, thanks for checking in with us, and yeah, hopefully it can burn off some steam. I'm sure you would appreciate that for sure. Mark, thanks for checking in, and with that, we're at the bottom of the list. Is there anyone else who'd like to check in to the Mississauga Aries net? Come now, please.
Victor Alpha 3, Alpha Zulu Alpha, Brian.
The VA3 AZA, VE3XVH. Go ahead, Brian. It's all yours.
VE3XPH, VE3A today. Well, good evening, Brian. Just thought I'd drop by and say hello. Good to hear you. And yeah, I don't know if you noticed there was a tornado warning this morning for about 3 minutes, and then it was rescinded. It was kind of interesting weather this morning. Over to you.
I didn't know that. Maybe I slept through it, or just missed it. I didn't realize there was a warning this morning. But well, good that it. I didn't hear anything else on the news or anything, so I'm assuming that it didn't touch down and no damage and nobody hurt. So I guess that would be a good thing.
Roger, yeah, I'm almost wondering whether it was a mistake, because I went outside, it was like, it was 8:43 this morning, and I went outside to look. I thought, well, that's peculiar, I don't see any bad weather, and there wasn't any bad weather, and then it was rescinded. So I wonder if it was a mistake, but I don't know. Over to you.
I don't know, maybe a fake, or maybe a test gone bad. But like I say, I didn't hear anything else. I didn't hear anything on the news, and heard nothing about any warning this morning. So who knows?
Roger. Well, who knows? Maybe we'll see something in the news. Anyway, I'll pass it back to you. Good to hear you. VA3A today. Over to VE3XPH.
Okay, Brian. Well, thanks for checking in with us, and I'm sure we'll be hearing you on the net in about 21 minutes or so. That brings us to the bottom of the list. Is there anyone else who'd like to check into the Aries net? Come now, please.
Comment? Yeah, it's Gary, VA3 Golf Delta Zulu. I heard that they apologized. They made a mistake, but before they could recall it, it went out to everybody's cell phone. So everybody was heading for the storm shelters in the basement, and they apologized for it. So back to you there, Brian.
VA3GDZ, VE3XPH. Okay, Gary, thanks for that. Thanks for that info. So it was a mistake after all. So there you go, Brian. That answers your question.
VE3XPH, VA3A today. Well, thank you, Gary. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, interesting. Doesn't happen too often, I guess. Anyway, over to you.
Okay, we're at the bottom of the list. I guess I'll make one last call for anybody who'd like to check into the Mississauga Aries net. Come now, please.
Alpha 3, Bravo Delta Yankee, Barlow.
VA3 Bravo Delta Yankee, Barlow. Go ahead, please.
Everything's good here. Radio's all working. Not too much to report. Other than that, back to net control.
VA3 BDY, VE3XPH. Okay, Barlow, well, thanks for checking in for us. Always good to hear you, and everything good, so all good. Thanks again. Okay, are there any other check-ins for the Mississauga Aries net? Come now, please. Nothing heard, so I guess we'll close the net for this week. I'd like to thank everybody who joined us this evening. This is Victor Echo 3 X-Ray Bravo Hotel closing the net and returning the repeater to normal use. I just want to remind everybody that in about 18 minutes or so, the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club Tuesday night net will be beginning, I should say, on this repeater. So thanks again for joining us. Thanks for all your participation. Good evening, 7-3, and stay safe.
A3GDZ disconnected. Echo Link. DECHLINK. Conference.
Amateur radio repeater VE3MIS. VA3 Golf Delta Zulu, Mr. Gary, getting ready for the net, BK60QQ. Good morning from Australia.
Well, good morning there, Reg. I'm sure you can see everything there. You're so experienced with Echolink and whatever. Yeah, I'm going to be the net controller this evening. I'm going to have a question of the day about severe weather and whether you think that's a sign of climate change. That's not going to be my question. Anybody else who's listening, if they'd like to do an early check-in, I've got my notepad out here. I think the hardest part of being the net controller is writing down all the call signs at the beginning of the net. Anyways, I'll take a bit of a standby. If you want to come back there, Reg, and then if anybody else wants to check in a few minutes early, we'll be starting in about 3 minutes. This is Victor Alpha 3, Golf Delta Zulu, Gary from Toronto.
Victor Echo 3, Delta Bravo November. Be glad to check in a little bit early.
Sounds good, Gary. Yes, and yes and yes. Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge getting the pen and the paper and putting everything down on it. But you can do it, I know. We're going to have a guest host net controller on our net coming up here next month, so we'll see how that goes. But we'll be listening out. A pleasure. VA3 Golf Delta Zulu, BK60QQ Australia.
Yeah, V7KI here as well, Gary, VA3 GDZ, and your upcoming net.
Echo 3, Delta Bravo November, early check-in.
Okay, I got you in there, Michael, V7KI and VE3 Delta Bravo November. And Reg, would you like me to check you in so we can hit you up for the question of the day, or are you just listening?
Gary, we'll be here, sir. See what's going on and see the screen filling up. Got the Do-Drop-In conference in here so far. So all should be good, sir. We'll be listening out.
Any other early check-ins for the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club Tuesday evening net?
VA3 KKY.
Got you in there, Kevin. Always expect you. And WA1, KAT, thank you for telling us you're lurking. Feel free to check in later on if you want. About to start the net in less than a minute. Good evening. This is Victor Alpha 3, Golf Delta Zulu. My name is Gary, and I'm your controller tonight for the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club's Tuesday Night Net. The net's available on the club's VHF repeater and on Echolink, starting at 20:30 hours Eastern Daylight Time right now and 0030 UTC. It's expected that we'll last maybe about an hour with a bit of contingency on the end, depending on how many check-ins we have. We might go an extra half an hour at most. To participate in the net locally, you can do so on the VE3MIS VHF repeater. You tune to 145.430 megahertz with a negative 600 kilohertz offset and a 103.5 hertz tone. Please stand by. We're also streaming it on YouTube. All you have to do is do a search for VE3MIS, and there's a live stream going on there. You can chat with Mark, VE3HAS, who's monitoring it. And it's kind of neat, too, because you can listen to yourself after the net. You can replay the YouTube video and hear how you sound coming out on the radio. Now, to participate on Echolink, you connect to the TechLink conference, node 9229, or one of the other conferences that connect to TechLink. I'd personally like to thank the organizers of the Australia Ham Conference and the Do Drop In Conference for linking with us and bringing in all of their many followers to this net. We value highly the participation from those outside of our region, and after dealing with club announcements and check-ins, we hope hams from far and wide will stay with us. This means you should leave a second or two space for all the links to work. Please stand by. If you'd like to find out more about the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club, visit our website at www.marc.on.ca. That's Mike Alpha Romeo, Charlie Oscar November Charlie Alpha. Club's email address is ve3mis@rac.ca. That's Victor Echo 3, Mike India Sierra at Romeo Alpha Charlie Charlie Alpha. My email is on my QRZ page. This is Victor Alpha 3, Golf Delta Zulu. My name is Gary, Golf Alpha Romeo Yankee. Please stand by. The purpose of the net is to share news and views with club members and visitors alike. It also provides experience for volunteer operators in net and emergency operating procedures. All check-ins are welcome. We value international participation highly and also invite local non-members to join in too. We will be having one round followed by an optional recheck or a second round if time permits. Short-time check-ins, either urgent or mobile, will be called first, and then general check-ins will follow. General check-ins will alternate between the RF users and Echolink users. Listen carefully for the group that best matches your circumstances. Please stand by. Okay, so the plan for tonight is I've got a few club announcements to make first. Then I'll record the check-ins by type. And that's my job, and then the next job's up to you. You can either share any news or activities in your neck of the woods with us, or you can take a crack at the question of the day, which I like to add here for some variety. So tonight it's going to be related to your experience with wacky weather and whether you think that means we're getting some climate change. I'll elaborate more in a moment. And then there'll be an optional comment round at the end to see if you have any comments about what others have said, or just to say 7-3. First, I'll get to some club announcements. Please stand by. So Echolink stations, we thank you for your patience. And let me get down here. Let's take a look. Oh, okay. The club meets virtually by Zoom every second or third Thursday of the month. Our meetings emphasize comradeship and learning, and we're open to guests and visitors alike. Our next club meeting will be on Thursday, May 13th, but please check our website to learn how to join. Also, there's a basic radio license course starting on May 3rd. Again, check the club website. Please stand by. I'll just mention a few other nets. tomorrow morning, that's Wednesday, on IRLP on this repeater. There's the Cross Canada IRLP net from 11 till noon, Eastern Daylight Time, or IRLP 3019. The Friday night Tech Link, hosted by Reg from Western Australia, can be heard on this repeater and the Tech Link conference. It's every Friday from 8 to 10 Eastern Daylight Time, and also available on Echolink 9229 or this conference. We have a 2-meter single sideband net locally here on Fridays. Look for station VE3MIS on 144.222 megahertz at 8 p.m. That's 144.222 megahertz if you have sideband capability. Also want to mention that our club system fusion repeater on UHF is now operational for those who can use C4 FM. It's on 444.575 megahertz plus 5 megahertz offset, 103.5 tone. Please stand by. Okay, for further details of anything that I've gone through, please go to the club website. Getting ready to move in now, or to move on ahead. But before I do, I just want to do a brief explanation of who we are and where we are for those who are connecting from outside our local region on Echolink, because I see a few of the conferences connected up. Mississauga in the province of Ontario is the 6th largest municipality in Canada. We're the western neighbor of Toronto, Canada's largest city, in the center of the Golden Horseshoe, which is a large urban and industrial region of 8 million people, spanning much of the northern and western shore of Lake Ontario, all the way down to Niagara Falls. Please stand by. The net not only spans this region by radio, we also come in by Echolink and on YouTube, as I've mentioned earlier. Just do a search for VE3MIS on YouTube if you want to monitor it, or chat with Mark, who's controlling that. Okay, let's see. Moving on to the check-in protocol. When checking in, please announce your call sign using phonetics, followed by your first name. I'll call check-ins in 4 groups. First, local, emergency, or high priority, and mobile, local RF, and Echolink. Check in with the group that best matches your circumstances. If we have time for a second round, that would be your chance to comment on what you've heard others say, or you can just say 7-3. Again, Echolink check-ins and RF check-ins will be called separately to reduce the risk of doubling. Please leave a gap of a second or two, since there are many linked conferences and they need time to connect up. Finally, try not to transmit for more than about 1 minute to prevent system timeout on the repeater. It also allows others to check in and have their turn. You can actually say quite a bit in a minute, though, and hopefully comment at the end of the first round. Please stand by. Okay, check-ins, remember, your call sign using phonetics followed by your first name. Your QTH, if not local, would be nice too, and if you're one and done, I won't call you if there's a second round or a chance to comment at the end. Are there any emergency or high priority or mobile stations who would like to check in now? Nothing heard. Start with some RF check-ins. If you are able to get in to our repeater by radio, either a club member or a guest who's just visiting, please check in now. Take your time. I got the pen ready. RF check-ins now, please, for the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club Tuesday night net. Actually, the question of the day, I'll give you more details once we have the first round of check-ins. Go ahead, RF check-ins.
Net control, this is K5NO, Kilowatt 5, Noe, Ontario, Mark in Fern Park, Florida, in and out.
Victor Echo 3, Whiskey Bravo Foxtrot, name is Barry, over.
Victor Alpha 3, Hotel Hotel Echo Sierra, Mark.
Okay, I got 3 in there. Let's get a few Echolink check-ins, and I'll give you more details about the question of the day, but it's going to be, you can start thinking about it, your experience with any extreme or wacky weather, and do you think that's related to climate change? Echolink check-ins, please. Go ahead.
Whiskey November 4 Victor. Whiskey November 4 Victor, John in South Florida.
Victor Kilo 2, Delta Yankee, Robert Info.
VK3 HJQ, John in Australia. Okay, we'll take a little bit of a pause there. I'll read back who I have. Got VK7KI, VE3DBN, VK6BQQ, VA3KKY, K5NO, in and out from Florida, VE, I think it's a VE, WBF Barry, VAHES, WN4V John, VK2DY, VK3HJQ. Did I make a mess of any of those call signs? Nothing heard, that's a good sign. So we'll see if we have any more check-ins a little bit later. Okay, question of the day. We'd love to hear about what's happening in your neck of the woods, but if you'd like to take a crack at the question of the day, it's optional. You're welcome to do that. So hams just love to talk about the weather, as we all know. I want to hear about your experience with either wacky or extreme weather. And did it make you think that climate is indeed changing? Or do you perhaps think weather's always been variable as far back as you can remember, so you really can't draw any conclusions based on your subjective experience? So the 1-minute question is, have you experienced or been following in the news any wacky or extreme weather recently, and do you think this is evidence of climate change? We want to hear your experience or your observations. Try to just mention one type of weather, if you could, on your first go-around, just for the sake of time, and we hopefully can have a second round so you can comment. So, over to the first on the list. What's happening in your area, and have you experienced any wacky or extreme weather that makes you think climate change is real? I'll start with VE7KI. Michael, go ahead.
VA3 Golf Delta Zulu Victor Echo 7 to India Michael here in Rock Creek, north of Mission. And weather is variable. I mean, we just come through one of the worst solar lows we've ever had at any given time. I can't see anything we've done on this planet that's changed the solar system, but I can see stuff in the solar system that changes what's on this planet. When it comes to carbon loading and stuff, all that carbon come out of the atmosphere in the beginning, and eventually we'll probably put it all back in there and bring back the dinosaurs. I don't know. The wackiest weather I've had is a -70 Fahrenheit in just outside of White River, Ontario, where I used to do radio work for Canadian Pacific. So I haven't had that for a while, and it changes quite a bit. So I don't say anything about it. Got an umbrella, got snow pants. I can live with it. Now, VE7KI, back to net.
Oh, roger that then, Michael. Thank you for checking in with us. So my reading of what you said is it's variable. Get used to it. It's always been variable, always will be. I think we're going to have some different views here, but we'll wait and see. VE3DBN, I didn't get the first name. Go ahead, and have you experienced any wacky or extreme weather, and do you think that's evidence of climate change? Go ahead.
Well, this is Victor Echo 3, Delta Bravo November, Dawn in Kleinburg, Ontario. Wacky weather, I don't think we've experienced any around here since I've lived up here. A number of years ago, back in Etobicoke, we had a flood in the middle of the summer, and literally the car, our house was on the corner, and we were unscathed, but everybody up and down both streets had horrendous damage, and there were cars that were completely covered in water, and there was even a small SUV that was covered in water, and it was quite a flood, and it was interesting to watch happen. Having said that, I'm not too sure that there's a lot of stuff going on that we can really change. I think I agree with the previous caller. It's going to happen or it's not going to happen. I just go along with it and just deal with it and try and protect myself if I can. And beyond that, personally, I finally have my new antenna mast up. I bought a spider reel and got that thing up. And I've got my NFIT running now about 30 feet, about 25 to 30 feet above the ground. And it's made a huge difference. I've been playing around on FT8. And I've got over 200 contacts so far in FT8, and it didn't take very long. So things are going well here. We're hunkered down. We're just dealing with the virus. I've got my first shot, so just wait for the second one to come along. Beyond that, I have nothing more to report, so I'll pass it back to Net Control.
Okay, thank you very much there, Don. I guess you're saying you couldn't really tell too much of variable weather because it's always been variable. You mentioned the flood. You mentioned two antennas. Which one of the antennas was giving you much better performance? If you could just clarify that before we move on. Back to you, Don.
VE3MIS here. Well, I have two antennas. One is a UHF VHF antenna that's up on top of a tower about 25, well, close to 30, 40 feet. Then I have another NFED antenna, that half-wave NFED that's strung off that out into the yard, and that's, the other end of that is attached to my spider pole. And so either one seems to be working quite well. The NFED generally is resident on 20, 40, and some places at 80 meters. And if I put the tuner on it, I can pretty well go anywhere I want. It was challenged a bit or compromised because it was hanging very low, within about 10 feet of the ground. And so now that I've got it up higher, it's working much better and seems to be going well. So I hope that answers your question. I'll turn it back to Net Control.
Thank you for that there, Don. Yeah, height always matters. I've heard size matters, but height always matters. I don't think my neighbors would like it that much. Okay, next on the list is Reg, VK6BQQ. What's going on, Reg? And if you want, you can take a crack at the question of the day. Have you experienced any extreme or wacky weather? And does that make you more of a believer in climate change, or has the weather always been crazy? Over to you, Reg.
Golf Delta Zulu, VK6BQQ. Well, things are pretty stable down here in Jandakot, West Australia. Up in the north, we get the cyclones and that, and a couple of weeks ago we had 2 or 3 of them happening. I think the weather's been basically the same, crazy. Mother Nature does what she wants, and we have to sit back and see what happens. But we've had a few storms down here. Right now we got smoke. The boys are up in the forest cleaning things up, and man, we've got some smoke out here today. But weather, well, since I've been around, it's been crazy, so I don't know whether it's climate change or just Mother Nature does her thing, but we keep spinning on this planet, and all sorts of crazy things happen. So whether you want to call it climate change or what, it's been around for a long time. Back to net, VK6PQQ Australia.
Thank you, Fred, and thank you for checking in. Always great to hear you. I'm going to put you down for the weather's always been crazy and always will be and always has been. I still think some other people may have different opinions. I guess it depends on your experience, and that's why I'm asking. But let's listen and see what others have to say. Next is over to Kevin, VA3KKY. Kevin, some of these crazy weather events that you hear about or maybe you've experienced, does it make you a believer in climate change? Over to you, sir.
Well, technically the climate changes constantly, so, but I know what you're talking about, and actually I don't have to go that far back to remember when it was really weird. It was the summer of 2017, right here in our neighborhood, here at Uptown where I live. Basically the summer, it was like just up and down, cold, almost like fall. And then for some reason, as we got into almost the Canadian Thanksgiving weekend, it started warming up like unbelievable, like sweltering heat. And then it went normal again, probably about Halloween. So that was crazy. And I've lived in different parts of the States and that since I have family everywhere. My mother being from St. Lucia, and my dad being from Taipei or whatever, you know, two different races, two completely different family trees. So there's people scattered all over the place. I've lived everywhere from the tri-state to the Pacific and California and that. And so, there's consistencies, inconsistencies, but I'm just dealing with where I live now here in Uptown. And a few years ago it was kind of weird. But I have noticed that a lot of times here where we live in Toronto, the weather isn't always going to act according to calendar. You would expect it to, and a lot of times it will as far as going into the fall and the winter. But we didn't really have so much of a spring this year, and there's been other years where weird stuff has happened. So it's not always going to be according to calendar. Anyways, I'll let someone else have a chance. They've probably been waiting, and you already know I'll be here. So I'll turn it back to you, and thanks a lot, VA3KKY.
Okay there, Kevin. Thank you for checking in and sharing some of your experience. It sounds like everybody agrees the weather is wacky. I don't know if people are agreeing that the wacky weather is evidence of climate change. By the way, if I say global warming, I get my knuckles rapped by my XYL. She says, no, it's not global warming, it's climate change. So I'm trying to use the right jargon here, so give me a break. Okay, we had K5NO, Mark from Florida. I'll just take a little bit of a brief standby here to see if he's there. He was going to be in and out, but we'll just see if he's there.
Nothing much, just good evening. This is K5NO, Kilowatt 5, Norway, Ontario. The name is Mark, Mexico Upper Radio Canada, Mark with a C. And the QTH is two words, Fern Park, Florida. Fern Park, Florida. We're at 71 degrees and mostly clear skies, going to a low of 63 and a high of 86. Weather forecasting, as I said, I'm in and out of this one, so I'll be silent about it. I'll say 73s. All the best to you and yours. Have a great week and stay safe. This is K5NO.
Well, thank you there, Mark, for getting back to us. You are in and out, so I'll pretend we didn't hear that, but we appreciate hearing from you. I'm not sure where Fern Park is. I'll have to look it up. Hi. But thanks for checking in with us. Next, we had, not sure if it's E or A, VE3WBF. Anyway, I'm sure it's Barry. Barry, go ahead. Anything new? And do you want to take a crack at our question of the day? Any extreme or wacky weather? And have you experienced? And do you think it's a sign of climate change? Over to you, Barry.
Net Control. This is VE3WDF. If you're thinking about wacky weather, a little rainstorm came through just over my house, and I think I heard thunder. And as for things new, I had my first try at the 144 net on Friday, and that was interesting and fun. And I learned, or actually I had a demonstration of horizontal and vertical polarity. Over.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. How did you get a demonstration of the polarity? And that was the single sideband net, right?
It was the single sideband net. I have a vertical antenna, and anybody close by, I boomed in, but anybody far away, I couldn't quite hear them, even though they were pumping out 30 and 40 watts. Over.
Yeah, I wonder, Barry, if that means you were using NVIS, near vertical, I forget what it stands for, but your horizontal antenna was shooting up and bouncing down off one of the ionosphere levels, and that's why you were getting a better horizontal. Any quick comment on that before we move on?
Well, I'm going to reconfigure my antenna on Friday and see what transpires. Over.
Yeah, okay. It's always fun to experiment with that. One of the other nets that I check in sometime is the Hawaii net. And as you know, the Hawaiian Islands are scattered over hundreds of miles out there. They use horizontal antennas and this NVIS method. If anybody wants to listen in on their nets or check out, they have all sorts of buttons you can push to see the propagation conditions. It's 40meter.net, 40meter.net. Okay, thanks, Barry. Mark, VA3HES, over to you. How are things going? And do you think the wacky weather is a sign of climate change?
Good evening, Gary. Mark here, Victor Alpha 3 Hotel Echo Sierra, Mississauga. Thanks for hosting that. And things are good over here. We're live on YouTube. And wacky weather. I've experienced a few rather scary near misses with some tornadoes over the years doing live events. It generally happens whenever you bring sound and lighting equipment out to a field on a nice sunny day. Bad weather will generally find you within 24 hours or less, and I've watched entire stages get cleared of equipment and wind up on the other side of a parking lot. I'm a firm believer that some of this is definitely caused by climate change, because I certainly don't, my short 43 years on Earth, don't remember weather being quite this crazy when I was a kid. Otherwise, that's it for now. I'm back to you.
Well, thank you there, Mark. Sounds like we have a believer there, but I'm not going to take sides right now. For other people who are listening in to the interesting conversations on the net, or the interesting stories that people are sharing, we've got about 3 more check-ins, and then I'll open it up for more check-ins, so if you could just be a little bit patient. Next is WN4V, John in South Florida. And John, I think you're on the Caribbean nets a lot. Please confirm. This is Victor Alpha 3, Golf Delta Zulu, Gary in Toronto. Over to John in South Florida.
Victor Alpha 3, Golf Delta Zulu, Whiskey November 4, Victor. Good evening to everyone. And I'm on the in Trinidad and Tobago, 2-meter VHF net via Echolink, and 2 nets in the morning, Peggy's Chat, and which is called the Early Riser net, and also the Early Morning net with VP2MEQH Quincy. Peggy's call sign is VP2MP, and I enjoy those nets very much. As far as climate change goes, there are so many factors that influence climate change. climate change has been occurring really since the planet cooled off. And I think that people make the mistake of relying on data that's 2 or 3 years old. You need to go back much, much further than that. For example, the world 300 million years ago was not ice, was very hot and very warm. So you need to consider all these things. As far as factors, let me reset. As far as other factors go, volcanic eruptions can cause climate change, global warming too. Anyway, we are safe and healthy here and doing quite well. And I spent a good part of the day while listening to the BBC World Service. That's all I have, and I'm glad I could be here. VE3 GDZ WN4V, South Florida, in Bradenton, Florida.
Well, thank you very much for joining us there, John. Interestingly enough, I recognized your voice from the Caribbean early morning net before I recognized your call sign. Yeah, you had some good insight there about we need to look much further. That's one reason why I'm asking the question, because everybody agrees the weather is wacky, but subjectively, is it a sign of climate change, or do we have to, like you say, look much farther back and look at the quantitative data? But it's what we all experience that stays in our minds, so that's why I'm asking the question. Thank you for the check-in. Robert, ZK2DY, he's always got some news from Australia, and so what's happening? And also, if you want to take a crack at the question, have you experienced any extreme weather, and do you think that it's a sign of climate change, or just the weather goes up and down? Over to you, Robert.
Yes, good morning. This is Robert, Victor Kilo 2, Delta Yankee in Kellyville Ridge, New South Wales, but all part of the urban sprawl that is Sydney. 11:02 a.m. here, 20 degrees Celsius. We should get a couple more degrees yet, but otherwise partly cloudy. The sun comes, sun goes, sun comes, sun goes. So that's the kind of weather we've got today. As far as different climate, well, we've had a couple of years here now of very extreme climate. Last year we had a terrible drought, bushfires all over the place. This year we had rain, wet, cool summer, more rain than we have had in a long time. So, I think those are probably happening so close together, I think is probably a sign of human-induced climate change. Certainly, as John said, just throwing up a few things from a volcano changes weather. So throwing up tons of garbage over a couple hundred years certainly must have an effect. I mean, if a volcano can throw up a little bit, then obviously a human being throwing up a lot is going to change things. So I think there's a real good example there with volcanoes. Excellent example. But at any rate, the weather has been rather extreme here for the last 2 years. So we'll see how it goes. We had been on a drought conditions here, but again, this year was very wet. This year was wetter than most other years. So we'll have to see what comes next. Thank you again, BK2DY. Back to net.
Thank you very much there, Robert. I was really waiting to hear what you had to say because you've had such amazing stories down there. The drought and the fires made worldwide news last year, and then this year, the floods. You told us, I think you said you or your neighbors had half a meter of water in your backyards there in suburban Sydney. My goodness, I don't know what to expect from you guys. So I'm going to put you down as yes, things are getting even crazier, and something is changing. Okay, next we have, let's see, John, EK3HJQ, another person that shares a lot of information with a lot of nets. Go ahead there, John. How's it going? And do you want to take a crack at the question? Does any of the extreme weather a sign of climate change, or does weather just go up and down? Go ahead, John.
Thanks, Gary. Good morning from down under. 18 degrees down here, so a couple of degrees lower than Robert. Well, I mean, it's a bit of a no-brainer. The science is out there, and I mean, the whole world's on board. They're trying to get by 2050, trying to stop it rising by 1.5 degrees, because apparently it's already gone up by 1 degree. And as Robert said, look what we've had in Australia. Droughts, horrendous bushfires, like crazy, and then, of course, flooding, in the last 2-3 years. So the science is out there. It's as simple as that. People that deny climate change are got a screw loose. So if we don't do something about it, we won't be here. That's about the bottom line. And yeah, I just got a report about the Pfizer vaccine, just to change the story. The AstraZeneca one was causing blood clotting, and this new one's causing heart problems now. The one that I had, only 20-odd cases or 28 cases overseas. So what do you do? Anyway, my go is, yes, of course, climate change is a real thing. The science has been out there for donkey's ages. People just need to get on board. VE3MIS.
Well, thank you very much for that, John. Yeah, we'll look for that Pfizer news. Just about anything you take, you take an aspirin or Tylenol, everything's got side effects, and you have to balance it and look at the benefits, of which are many. I don't know if you can say it's a no-brainer, because about 3/4 of the people so far said they can't tell. Weather is crazy regardless. They can't tell it's a sign of climate change. So we'll see what people have to say in the second round, or if there's other people, which I'm sure there are, who would like to check in. Anybody on RF would like to check in to the Mississauga Tuesday evening net? Go ahead. Anyone on RF?
Echo 3, Tango Golf Lima, South Etobicoke, RF.
Okay, got you in there, Tango Golf Lima. How about on Echolink? We must have some other people on Echolink who've been listening in. If you'd like to check in, I'm listening.
Whiskey Niner, Delta Mike Charlie, David in Northbrook, Illinois.
Well, Victor Alpha 3, Alpha Zulu Alpha, Brian in Mississauga.
This is N5XCX in Florida. X-ray, Charlie, X-ray.
Victor Kilo 6, VK6, Golf India Alpha, Peter, on the Indian Ocean, Western Australia, the town of Greenhead. Good morning.
Okay, we'll hold it there for a moment. I'll get to other check-ins later. We're getting a thunderstorm here, so I hope it doesn't knock the power out to my shack here. I got TGL, BMC, AZA, XCX, and GIA. Over to you, Victor Alpha 3, Tango Golf Lima. If you want to give your name and call sign again, and if you want, you can take a crack at the question of the day about extreme weather. Is it a sign of climate change, and what have you experienced?
It's Victor Echo 3, Tango Golf Lima. Name here is Uwe, Uniform Whiskey Echo, down here in South Etobicoke. And climate change? Well, yeah, it's, I think somebody said it already here. The climate's always changing. But is it getting worse? Could be. I don't know. When I was a kid, I remember big snow banks and snow all winter long and blizzards and all kinds of stuff. And I think last winter I took out the snow shovel one time, and that was about it. So if there is climate change and it is happening, I'm kind of enjoying it, at least in my parts anyways. Oh, and a quick question to all you guys out there in Australia there, New South Wales. I heard one guy check in from there. My wife was just telling me they got a big infestation with mice. And there's people out there in New South Wales catching bucketfuls of mice. So that's kind of interesting. I wonder if that has anything to do with the weather. VE3 Tango Golf Lima, back to net control. Gary, I think it is GDZ.
Yeah, sure is there, Uwe. I've chatted with you on some of the local nets here. Any of our Australian friends want to comment on mice? We'll take a little bit of a standby. Didn't hear any mice out there. Maybe in the next round, or the when they say 7 threes there, Uwe. Anyways, you're changing the subject on me. I think what you're saying, I'm trying to read through the lines here, it's always changed. You remember big snowbanks, there aren't any now, so you're really not sure, not convinced yet. Okay, let's hear if David from Illinois is W9DMC. Come on in, David. Welcome to the Mississauga Tuesday Night Net.
Thank you. So I'll take a crack at this. I actually pay a fair amount of attention to this climate change stuff. I recommend, if anybody is seriously interested in it, there is a YouTube channel made in Canada called the Climate Discussion Nexus, CDN, and they actually follow the science. They're not wrapped up with the politicians or the media. And if you watch that for a while, go back and watch all their stuff, you will be pretty convinced that if there is climate change, it has nothing to do with us.
Well, thank you for pointing us out to that. We'll have to check it out. Have you personally, though, experienced any severe or unusual weather that makes you a believer? Go ahead, Dave.
Well, I probably have experienced the same amount of wacky weather that everybody else has, but I believe the climate has always been wacky, and it's not necessarily getting worse. W9DMC.
Okay, your position on that's quite clear. Thank you very much for that. We have Brian, VA3AZA. I assume you've heard the chit-chat tonight. You can take a crack at it now. Over to you.
VA3GDZ, this is VA3AZA. And Gary, thanks very much for taking the net, and very interesting net. Actually, you hit upon a lot of interesting questions one could ask in relation to the things you're talking about. And the first thing that hit my mind is this: whether one's lived experience could be counted on as a sort of form of evidence arguing for a particular pattern in the world. And it's a very interesting question because some of these things that we experience presumably would correspond to a larger pattern if it's there, but the difficulty is knowing which one, I guess. But anyway, it's funny with Uwe mentioned the change in winter over time, and it seems like winter has disappeared a little bit here in southern Ontario. I'm kind of inclined to see that as an indication of climate change. And of course, we're talking about climate change due to human activity, not the other kind of sort of ongoing climate change. But I would be inclined to believe that. But again, it's always hard to know which data point is representative of the whole pattern, if the pattern's out there. Anyway, I'll pass it back to you. VA3 at GDZ, this is VA3AZA.
Yeah, thank you, Brian, for checking in. Yes, it is hard to tell subjectively, because I think we're kind of biased by the things that are nearby or happened recently. And of course, this is a long-term phenomenon, so that's why I'm asking you guys the question. I guess I should give my 2 cents at the end here. Anyways, let's hear what Woody has to say, N5XCX. Over to you, Woody. Welcome to the Tuesday Evening Net. how's it going? And if you want to take a crack at the question of the day, have you experienced extreme weather, and does it mean climate change to you or not? Go ahead, Woody.
Well, good evening to you. And, I don't know if the weather is changing all that much. I grew up near Houston and on the Ship Channel, or near the Ship Channel, in a little town called Pasadena. And just about every time that it rained, there was a flood there, And we have had some tremendous floods during my lifetime, And, well, anyway, Houston, I think, was so flat that just about any rain at all would flood, would stand like pouring water on a tabletop, But anyway, I think that the mean temperature is rising a little bit because the Earth's axis is moving a little more to the south than it has in years past. But, I think we wobble a bit, so who knows, And I don't think it's man doing it, but you never can tell. And I don't think it's to be, but I do know the ice caps are melting. Hang on to a second for me. And the ice caps are melting, and some of the creatures that, like seals that need the really cold weather, sea lions and all that, are starting to die out a little bit. So who knows, who knows what's happening. But there again, I think it's just, normal changes in the pattern. This is N5XCX, and Mark is my neighbor. I'm down here in Tavares, Florida, near Orlando, but not quite as close to Orlando as he is. You have a good one, and enjoy the evening. N5XCX since 73.
Oh, there you go, Woody. You didn't quite disconnect. I'll put you down as really can't tell. And yeah, those floods in Houston were terrible. They were certainly on the news. And I see that John from Australia says if we're all complaining about the climate, we should move to Mars. So maybe Elon Musk will get us there. We'll see. Peter in Greenhead, VK6 GIA, you're up. We were worried about you, sir, because that last cyclone, we heard it was coming to Western Australia, and it came pretty close to you, and I appreciated hearing your stories on VE3MIS Net on Friday. Anyways, over to you. What's new, and do you think this extreme weather is indicating climate change or not?
VA3GDZ. Good day there, Gary. Good evening to all in Canada, and good day to the States there also. Good evening. Good morning from here, VK6GIA, local time 20 after 9 in the morning, sitting out the back here in the sun. Yep, well, sorry, Gary, but I'm somewhat of a conspiracist. I'm also an amateur meteorologist. I take a lot of time looking at weather. You can ask Reg about that. but the Antarctic area to the south of us here currently has warm weather. The ice is melting at a rate unheard of. And anyhow, I'm not going to go that way. As far as what's happening here, please, for those of you out there who've never heard of HARP, that's Hotel Alpha Alpha Romeo Papa, Google it up. Google the patent of HARP up. It was patented by Tesla. Surprise, surprise, right? In 1987. Now, right after that, a HARP facility was built in Canada, and it was operating, then all of a sudden it was put off the air. These facilities are spread right across the planet. This is no word of a lie. There are probably thousands of them now. Each country has one of its own. Exactly why they need them, I do not know, but originally to expand the ionosphere. Well, that has a lot of question marks on it. But since then, the weather's gone absolutely crazy. But do, please, Google it up. I am a conspiracist, but this thing exists. Google it up and have a read of the patent. If you haven't had nightmares before, you will have them after you've read it. VK6GIA.
Well, thank you for checking in with us there, Peter. Yeah, that sounds like something for a late night. I don't think we should be messing around with the ionosphere. That's my reaction, but okay. Yeah, what you're saying is there's evidence of it, but you think people are messing around. Well, that's different. I'll just give some feedback that I've heard from others who aren't in here. There was two people who lived on islands. They said no, they couldn't see any change because they get all sorts of weathers, crazy weather. One was, I think, in Hawaii. One was in Isle of Man in the UK. A couple other people said definitely. One said it was because warmer summers. He was in the U.S. The other person was from the southern U.S. He says, we're getting snow when we've never got before. And we talked about what happened in Texas. Texas got below zero temperatures and snow. They are not used to that, and it took out their power grid, and it took out their water supply. So I think that is strong evidence. And what I personally observed is the jet stream has much bigger dips in it. So you're going to get extremes more often, and you're going to get hotter when you're hot and colder when you're cold, because we've had some pretty cold winters and pretty warm summers. Okay, any other check-ins? I think we have time to go back so you guys can say 7-3 in just a moment. Any other check-ins to the Mississauga Tuesday Night Net, either on RF or Echolink?
Victor Alpha 3, Whiskey Mike, John in Niagara.
Victor Echo 3, X-Ray Bravo Hotel, Brian.
Okay, just a couple more. We'll hold it there. Over to you, John. Let's see. VA3WM. Go ahead.
Good evening, Gary, and everyone on the Mississauga Net. You got a good question. So I heard mentioned that, like myself, I remember much more severe winters when I was a child and growing up, and even when I moved to Toronto right around 1977 it was, we had lots of snow. And right now I'm in Niagara, where it looks like we're going to have a dry summer. We did have a bit of rain tonight after a roll of thunder, but we could sure use more. One thing I do want to mention, though, my wife is quite interested in history, and the Niagara region is very rich in history. And one of the things she attended was a talk on the limestone quarry in Queenston. And let me break. And we talked about, what the Earth looked like thousands of years ago, and how this was a seabed with different rivers, depending on which thousand of years you were in. So the world was certainly changing, but the neatest thing is she brought me a piece of limestone that has a fossil in it, and I thought that's very cool, and she picked it up out of the vineyard that's behind us. So is the world changing? Yes, and it has in the past, and it will continue to. The severity of the change is something that I guess needs to be paid attention to if we can. But I'll pass it back to you, Gary. VA3WM.
Thank you very much there, John and Niagara, for the comments. I remember the big snowbanks too, but I have trouble explaining the very cold winters we got, not this winter, 2 winters ago, 3 winters ago, unless I look at how the jet stream's been distorted, and that is related to climate change. Thank you for that. Brian, you're last on my list, VE3XBH. Go ahead.
VA3 GDZ VE3XBH. Good evening, Gary, and hello to everybody on the net this evening. I have to apologize. I kind of got called away from the radio, so I've missed a good portion of the net this evening, but missed probably a lot of good comments, I'm sure. But my thoughts on climate change, I guess, I kind of thought that, we're always in some kind of a cycle. That's just the way things work. And I do remember winters that seemed to have, snow, more snow, and it seemed to stick around longer. We seem to get snow that, we'll get a snowfall, then in a couple of days it'll be gone, and then might not get one for a while, and then another one, and then it's gone in a couple of days, where I remember the snow seems to be around a little bit longer, break. But I guess in the grand scheme of things, we've only been documenting it for a very short period of time, so I think that this kind of a cycle, it happens, and we're in one portion of the cycle, I guess, just like anything else. Whether or not us as human beings are affecting it, I couldn't really say for sure. Certainly, any pollution and that sort of thing we put in the air is not good, but whether we're actually affecting it, I don't know. I guess that remains to be seen. But anyways, those are my thoughts, Gary, and I just wanted to check in, say hello, and glad to hear that everybody's there, and we'll be listening along. So I'll send it back to you, Gary. VA3GDZ VE3XBH.
VE3MIS.
Yeah, thank you for joining us there, Brian. I think, based on what I heard, I'm going to put you down as I don't know. That's the third category. I've got several people here saying I can't tell, and we seem to be split on the rest. Some are saying, nah, the weather's always changed, and there's a couple, well, more than a couple here, definite yeses based on what they've experienced. But yeah, it's hard to tell subjectively. It's a tough question, one that you got to think about a bit. So thank you all for participating. I'm going to run down through the list for the 7-3 or commenting round. I call it comment. If you have any short comments on what you've heard others say, here is your chance. If you don't have any comments, you don't need to get back to me. I'll just move on down the list fairly quickly here. Okay, Michael, VE7KI, any comments?
Yeah, it's going to sound kind of weird because I don't have my microphone hooked up, so this is just my laptop mic that's in here. While I say that I've seen all sorts of weather and climate change and everything, it's like playing a ruler across a sphere. We've got such a small area to to calculate things in, and things are cyclical. If you or anybody really believes that we can fix what we've done, then let's put all our cars in the ocean and clean up the plastic out of there, which is the biggest carbon sink we have, and do something about it. Planting a couple of trees in northern Ontario isn't going to do a darn thing. So if the governments think that climate change is a big deal, then let's see them do something about it. Let's see them trawl all that plastic out of the ocean. Let's see them ban the cars, the VE3MIS.
Well, some of that's coming one way or another. Wow, this is a can of worms, isn't it? Any final comments there, Don? This is the 7-3 round, VE3 DBN. Okay, moving on to Reg, if you're still there. Any final comments? VK6, BQQ.
Yeah, VK6, BQQ returning. Well, lots of comments, and, well, if we figure we can do something about it, we better get started, because it's been going on for a long time. Mother Nature's doing her thing, and so is the, well, the population of the world, that's for sure. Down here, going to the food stores, what have you, you have to take your own bags because they're not delivering plastic anymore. I think they should have gone back to the paper bags, but in any event, our landfills are getting filled with all sorts of craziness, and, well, it's got to go somewhere. Anyway, my thoughts. VA3 GDZ, VK6 BQQ Australia. Good morning.
Good morning there, Rich. Have a good day. Hope to chat with you on your Friday night. Kevin, any short comments at the end based on what you've heard?
I'm just always interested in what the conspirators think, and you know, people relaying situations in different places. And I have a long memory on certain things. I wrote a lot of stuff. I'm not going to repeat it all. I wrote a book there. You know how I do. So, anyways, I'll talk to you guys next week. I'll just, you know, hey, there's things that I can't fit all in one over. So, it's like that all day and the rest of the night. All right, take care. This is VA3KKY. Catch you guys down the band.
Thank you for joining us, Kevin. You're a real stalwart on all of these nets. Let's see, Mark from Fern Park, Florida. He's out. He was 1 and out. I don't know where Fern Park is, and I don't have time to look it up. Maybe John knows when I get down to him. WBF, Barry, any final comments for the net?
Net control, this is VE3 WBF. The only comment I have is that you've got to recognize that way back in the 60s, Toronto was much smaller, and it's now grown to this huge metropolis, and that does affect weather. It's the heat in the concrete, and we're sitting right next to Lake Ontario, which is a great heat sink. And so if you're remembering back in the 60s, the snow, and you don't get it today, that's probably one of the reasons. Over.
Yeah, okay. There's so many factors to take into account, right? Because if you've moved, if you've lived in a different area, but there is the weather pattern changing. That's a tough call, that's for sure. Thank you for joining us tonight, Barry. Mark, any comments for the 7-3 round, VE3HE?
Thank you, Gary. No more comments. To say my 7-3s to everyone. Interesting net tonight, and thank you for hosting. And to everybody, don't forget to check us out on YouTube. Search for VE3MIS, and look for the Tuesday night VHF live stream section, and you'll find tonight's nets. And that's it. Back to you, Gary.
Yep, and thank you for doing that, Mark. And I'll just mention again to everybody who's listening, if you want to hear what you sound like, you can go to the YouTube, play it back, and if you know roughly what time you checked in, you'll find yourself and you can hear what you sound like. Okay, John in South Florida, you still with us? WN4V?
Victor Alpha 3 Golf, Delta Zulu Whiskey, November 4, Victor. Yes, I'm still with you. I like this net. It's a very, very well put together, professionally run net. I do have one example to give that did cause climate change. 70,000 years ago, a super volcano in Indonesia, the name escapes me at the moment. I thought it was Mount Toba, but I'm not sure, did cause very, very marked climate change, which resulted in a bottleneck for the human race. If anyone's interested in looking it up, they can go look it up and check it out. And I do have one additional comment. I believe that I like the comments that I've heard so far today. Would it reset? What disturbs me more than anything is that I guess is that the hypocrisy of those who really, really run climate change into the ground, but they don't practice what they preach. And that's all I can really say. Enjoy the net. See you next Tuesday, and everyone stay safe. VA3GDZ, WN4V in Bradenton, Florida. Oh, excuse me. I believe Fern Park is up near Orlando somewhere. I've never been there, but I believe it's near Orlando.
Yeah, okay. Orlando we all get. Fern Park we don't. Thank you very much for joining us, John. Some good insights and comments. And tell Peggy on the Caribbean net that Gary VA3 Golf Delta Zulu says hello. I'll hear you on some of those nets. Robert, are you still with us? Do you have any concluding comments based on what you've heard?
VK2DY. No further comments from me at this point, but thank you for the net. VK2DY 73, everybody.
Okay, over to you there, John. VK3HJQ. Did you leave us for Mars? Over to you, sir.
Just check the temperature up there. It's a bit fresh. Yeah, anyway, my final comment, go with the science. Thanks, Gary. VK3HJQ.
Very good there, John. Always great to have Robert and Reg and Peter. You guys join us from Australia. Really appreciate it. Adds a lot to our net. Uwe, I don't know if you're still there. TGL, any final comments for the net before we wrap up?
Gary, V3 GDZ, V3 Tango Golf Lima here from Toronto, Canada, South Etobicoke. And no further comments on the mice. I guess I'm going to have to tell the wife she must be listening to the wrong news station or something. Anyways, the climate change, yeah. Like I said, the climate's always changing. Whether we're causing it or not is another story. And I don't see why we can't change the climate. I mean, we've cut down all the trees, we changed the oxygen levels, we've done a whole bunch of stuff here to wreck the planet. And maybe our next generation, the young ones here, will grow up and change it all back for us. Hopefully they're going to be smarter than we were. That's all I can say. VA3 TGL, back to net control. Great net, guys.
Well, thank you for joining in and for the comment. I see that Michael, VE7K, found his volcano. He says the Toba eruption was a super volcanic eruption that occurred 75,000 years ago, fortunately before my time, at the site of present-day Lake Toba in Sumatra, one of the Earth's largest known explosions. Wow, look that up. Okay, any final comments from David, if you're still there, W9DMC?
Yes, I'm still here, and my only comment is thank you for running a very interesting net tonight. 73, everyone. W9DMC.
And thank you for joining us. We'll have to look up that site, the Climate Discussion Nexus that you told us about. Brian, VA3AZA, any concluding comments? Well, your audio was virtually nil there, Brian. I don't know what the heck you're on or what you're doing, or did you go to the bathroom and you're connecting from there? Did you want to try again?
Victor Alpha 3, Golf Delta Zulu, this is VA3A today. Sorry, Gary, yeah, I pressed the wrong button. I have the headset for the HT on my head, and I pressed the button on the keyboard, and so that was my problem. Anyway, thanks very much for the net tonight. Very, very interesting, very fascinating questions. No further comments, and I'll pass it back to you. VA3A today, over to net control.
Okay, Brian, thanks for joining us. Boy, we got to help this guy. Tell him which button to push on his radios. Hi, it was pretty funny. I don't know, Woody, if you're still there, do you have any concluding comments for the net before we wrap? Nothing heard from Woody. I'll do one more call out in a moment here, if anybody is listening near the end of our net. Peter, if you're still there, VK6GIA, anything for the 7-3 round? Nothing heard from Peter from Greenhead, Australia. VA3WN, John, any comments on what you've heard this evening?
Okay, Gary. Well, a very, very interesting net. I really appreciate you kind of asking the question and drawing out all the different opinions. So, something to think about for sure. So, I'm hoping that we'll all end up doing the right thing and, having the Earth continue for another 75,000 years. Yeah, way beyond my time. I'll become a fossil by then. But anyways, thanks a lot, Gary. VA3WM.
Okay, you've given me an idea for the next net. If you were a fossil, what kind of a fossil would you be? Wow. Yeah, I'm surprised. It can be a controversial topic. People can get really steamed up on either side of it. So I got to think up some easier weather-related questions to ask next time. Thanks for joining us, John. Brian, are you still in there? VE3XBH, any concluding comments? And I'll do one more round of check-ins after this.
VA3GDZ, VE3XBH. Yeah, I'm still here, Gary. And John, speaking of fossils, many times I've been told I'm already a fossil. So, so what can I say? But Gary, thanks for doing the net. It was a good question, and I wish I could have heard a little bit more of the net this evening. But thanks again for doing it, and I just say 7-3 to everybody, and stay well, stay safe, and I'll send it back to you, Gary. VA3GDZ, VE3XPH.
Yeah, thanks for joining there, Brian. Yeah, some very different opinions. I thought it would be swayed one way or the other, but it's not. and I got to start a third category, which is you can't really tell. Any other people want to check in at the end? We're near the end of the net, but if you want to do a late check-in, I'll take you now. This is the Mississauga Tuesday Night Net. Any other late check-in? Okay, I've only heard one. I got Romeo, Zulu, Romeo. Your signal's pretty weak. I could barely make you out, but if you can give us your name and QTH, and if you have any comments, we'll stand by and listen. Go ahead, Romeo, Zulu, Romeo.
Thank you, Gary. I just turned it up a little bit. It should be a little bit better for you there. And hello to everybody on net. My first time checking into this net, and good evening to everybody. Like I said, hopefully everybody's night is going good. I think the question is about the environment. My opinion on the environment would be to clean up the pollution and get rid of a lot of the fossil fuels, a lot of burning of the fuels we shouldn't be burning, and look at alternative ways of energy and electric and stuff like that. So that's my opinion. If that's the question, that's my opinion on that. So back to you, Net Control. Thanks for letting me go in there. Thanks, Gary. Have a great night.
Yeah, thanks. Could you repeat your call sign, name, and QTH for us for the log, please?
Victor Alpha 3, Romeo, Zulu, Romeo. The personal is Ray here, Romeo Alpha Yankee. Over to you, Gary.
Amateur, radio, repeater, VE.
Yeah, okay, Ray, you're coming in loud and clear that time. We could barely pull you out the first time. Gives you an idea. Okay, last call. Anybody else want to check in at the end of the Mississauga Adventure Radio Club Tuesday Night Net? Go ahead.
Victor Alpha 3, Papa Lima Juliet.
Kilo Juliet 7, Whiskey Fox Delta, Devon.
Kilo India 5, Oscar Golf Juliet, Bill, Austin, Texas. Okay, this is Victor Alpha 3, Golf Delta Zulu, Gary. We've got three more. We got Al from Windsor, we got Devon, and we've got Bill. We're near the end of the net, guys, but we're happy to have you join us. Just before we wrap up, the question was, have you experienced any extreme or unusual weather that leads you to believe that climate change is occurring? Over to you, Al, VE3MIS.
Good evening, Net Control. Victor Alpha 3 Alpha Hotel. Climate change, I really haven't seen anything, but I could be wrong. I'm really not into climate change. I think it's just the weather changes, good or bad. What are we supposed to do about it? Absolutely nothing. Other than that, Net Control. 7-3, God bless. Thanks for running the net. Victor Alpha 3 Alpha Hotel.
Okay, thanks, Al. You squeaked in and under the line there. Next we've got David, KFWFD. Go ahead, David. What's your QTH? And did you have any comments for the question of the...
KJ7WFC, Devon, Bloomington, Indiana. I would throw a stone possibly to say I'm considerably younger than I guess maybe the average ham, but even at 23 years old, I see a lot milder winters than I did, you know, being 8, 9, 10 years old, where we would, you know, maybe it's 8, 9, 10 inches of snow, and I think down home it snowed twice, maybe 3 times this year, but, you know, 10 years ago it would have just piled down. So I'm sure there's something to it, and, you know, renewable fuels, alternative fuels, I'm all for it, but at the same time, I get that there's a lot of money to be made, and a lot of people's minds to change that are pretty dead set on it. So maybe not, but I would put myself in the I'm not sure category. So we'll hand it back to you, KJ7WFC.
Well, Devin, thanks for joining us. Yeah, we need some younger people to give us their perspective. And yeah, that not sure category is certainly filling up. Bill, over to you. OJG, I think, was the end of your call sign. Over to you, Bill.
Yes, this is KI5OGJ, Austin, Texas. And of course, in February, we had what was probably the 100-year storm that totally paralyzed Texas. And I am not even yet through repairing all the freeze damage. Nevertheless, I don't think the historical records of temperatures are adequate to support the idea that there are irreversible changes in the warming of the climate, but that's just my opinion. Thank you guys for inviting me. I'm a very new ham. This is the first time I've tried Echolink. I appreciate listening to you. I hope you all have a nice evening. KI5OGJ, back to net control.
Okay, Bill, thank you very much for joining us, KI5OGJ. Yeah, Echolink is great. It's a better quality audio signal these days with the new version, too. I'm not sure which version you're using. Well, thank you for joining us, and don't be a stranger. And I've noted your comments. I'm going to have to wrap it up here, I'm afraid. I'll stay online a few minutes after, but I think we're going to get the boot here in a few minutes. So I want to thank everybody who's still online for joining us tonight. If you have any comments, thoughts, or suggestions, you can contact us for club matters via email at VE3MIS@RAC.ca. That's Victor Echo 3 Mike India Sierra at Romeo Alpha Charlie Charlie Alpha. Or some feedback or suggestions for me, you can use the email that's on my QRZ page. This is Gary, Victor Alpha 3, Golf Delta Zulu, closing the net and returning the repeater to general use. Thank you all for your participation. 7-3 to all, and I'll stand by just for a few minutes. Have a good evening. Good morning to the fellows in Australia. Bye now.
VA3 PLC is
good
still
net,
possible
sir.
to get checked in.
VK60QQ. WN4V, South Florida. Probably haven't heard you for a while.
Yes, sir, VK6BQQ WN4V. I've been busy. I participate in a lot of nets, but not much domestically anymore. I'll try and make it this Friday night if I can. But I'm on rather late. How are you? And see, I have another one in 10 minutes. VK6BQQ WN4V.
WN4V, VK6BQQ. Well, join us when you can. You're busy, and that seems to be the case around the world. All right, we won't tie it up here, but I just wanted to wave a hand and say good day, and it's been a long time. Join us when you can. We've surpassed our 1,000 weeks consecutive on the air, so we're heading for another number. 7-3.
7-3, Reg. Good to hear you, and good day to you. WN4V on clear.